My guest today is an absolute legend, a musical icon who, as much as anyone, transformed the art of DJing from cool party trick into the great art form of the 21st century. A gent with a black belt in collective euphoria. He's also part owner of Brighton and Hove Albion Football Club. A man who's been with that beautiful, scrappy team through thick and thin. Long before Graham Potter even had a beard, he gifted us the all-time classic Rockefeller skank. It's the king of Big B, up the Seagulls, Norman Cook, Fatboy Slim.
After that introduction, I can only disappoint.
So can I, so let's disappoint together. I'm fascinated by your football fandom, Norm, because you are a well-known Brighton fan, and I want to talk about that. But first, how would you describe Brighton to someone who has never been there before? Because it is a unique vibe of a town you got there down on the south coast of England.
For Americans, probably San Francisco is the closest we've got. It's always been a little eccentric. Not only tolerates sort of alternative lifestyles, it actually encourages them.
I love that town, and I love the football club, and I love the role it plays in the city. We've got to acknowledge this.
Brighton, the football team's very much like Brighton, the city. We don't do things like normal, and we don't take it totally seriously all the time. We're the sort of team that people sing gay slurs at us because we're so known as a gay capital, and we just sing back, "You're too ugly to be gay." That's the Brighton attitude. A sense of humour, disarming, and gay friendly.
And loving life in every regard. But the Brighton you fell in love with was a very different Brighton than we know today. They were in the doldrums. 23 years ago, Brighton had been on the brink of doom at the foot of the English League pyramid. They were broke, they were homeless.
One goal away from being chucked out of the Football League at Hereford.
Yes, at Hereford. How bad were things? How low did it go for you?
We had no money. We had no decent players. We struggled to get a manager. We had no ground. What fans we had were, the die-hard. We were down to about 6,000, 7,000 every week. We had no prospects for us at all. And if we weren't even in the Football League, if we're dropped out of the fourth tier, you really don't think we would have survived.
When the club didn't have any money, they sold your stadium and turned it into a Toys R Us car park.
You know what the worst thing was? Where the pitch was. It was the car park. It wasn't even the building, it was the car park. But Toys R Us is gone now, so ha-ha.
As a dad, trying to be a good dad, but shutting the car door and being completely aware you just parked on the centre spot.
Really, really quite upset about it. And then my poor son, every time I went there, I would tell him this whole story and he'd just, tell me again. That was the centre spot, wasn't it, Dad? Yes. And you wonder why my son doesn't like football.
6 times the club had to fend off winding up petitions in the High Court, essentially bankruptcy. It was a real brush with oblivion you've been through, Norm. You stayed. You even started to put your own money into the club so they could buy a new striker. You took an ownership stake. What was it driving this madness?
Just something in my heart rather than my head. I like football and I love that we have a local team. What made it really nice was, because the club had gone so low, there was no airs and graces about it. Anyone could be involved. People with nothing to lose have no ego or arrogance. So it was like the club was a really friendly place. Anyone was welcome. It felt like it was our club. Nobody else wanted to own it. And we had a pact that it would be always owned by us, the fans.
You put your record label on the shirt. You even changed the name of the stadium to one of your albums.
Our chairman at the time, Dick Knight, came from a career in advertising. And he was trying to give me something back for all the money I was putting into the club. So he just said, well, the least we could do is try and promote your new albums. Palookaville. It was a shameful marketing ploy to try and sell my average 4th album.
but it's easy to pinpoint the day Brighton's new era began. May 20th, 2009. Tony Bloom, a local property investor and professional poker player, those two often go hand in hand, brought 75% of the club. He's a lifelong Brighton fan. Brighton, when Tony Bloom took over, were then in League One, the 3rd tier, and Bloom took your club, who were then homeless with thinning attendance, totally lost their way on a magical journey, poured in $326 million, built the Amex Stadium, a state-of-the-art academy, and in less than a decade, Brighton and Hove Albion had evolved from mid-table League One to a true, full-throated, self-confident club in the Championship. Did that stability itself feel like success?
The journey we'd been on, any kind of stability felt beautiful. Whether it was the team playing well or us not having a court case over us. The getting of the Amex, I think, changed the whole mindset of everybody, because playing in an athletics track with no roof, it felt like amateurs. But to have a stadium of our own really kind of galvanised everything.
Brighton, such a proud, traditional, fiercely local club still. There is something magical about your stadium. It is modern, but the roots are local. The communal ties, the local pies, the local beers, they are fierce. Can you describe what it can feel like to be in there on match day?
That atmosphere of community. We're not very boisterous. Some teams come and say, slag us off for not singing enough or not giving them as much abuse. Yeah, we're not sort of yobbish. There's a sense of humour. There's a good sense of history. I think what dictates it is our walk-on tune. It's Good Old Sussex by the Sea. And it's like a tune from the 1920s, I think. Good old Sussex by the sea, good old Sussex by the sea, and we're going up to win the cup. So it's like a sort of marching song. That sort of defines us. It's not particularly cool, it's quite eccentric, but everybody sings it. Everybody gets, really behind it, and that puts us in the mood. You sort of feel that the away fans are respectfully not singing "You're a wanker" during it. They can't wait till we finish so they can just, is that it? Is that your song?
Is that all you got?
Yeah.
Brighton's sweet story of wonder soon met the buzzsaw that is the Premier League. Your manager who brought you up, the great Chris Hughton, was replaced. In came a bookish, barely tested, handsome young manager, Graham Potter.
When they removed Chris Hughton, it was like, so who are you going to get in? And there was a sort of resounding, who? He came out of nowhere. I mean, nobody had heard of him because he'd never been much of a player, so we didn't know him as a player. Managed some Swedish Sunday League team for a few years, but knew about statistics. So he was really unproved. And when he came in, he looked about 15.
Yeah.
And we're like, you're not going to last long in the Premiership, mate.
Behold, puberty.
I thought he only grew the beard because everyone said he looked about 15. I'm having trouble getting served a drink in pubs.
Have you met him? What's he like in real life?
I've got a cafe down the road. He comes in there, and most footballers are there. You'd know when somebody important walked in the cafe. Whereas he could just sort of skulk in the corner and we barely recognise him. He's as modest and unassuming and soulful like you'd expect.
I do love his quote about what he came to Brighton for. He said, not accepting that 95% of this league is determined by finance, aiming high.
Brighton and Hove Albion producing one of their greatest days. A 4-0 victory against Manchester United for a side who'd only won once at home in the last 6 months.
Creating an environment that's special, share some sort of common ground in terms of how to be, how to act, how to respect each other, how to communicate, how to deal with disappointment, how to deal with success. I mean, that's life.
Don't you just want him to be your dad? If only he could marshal my children like that, he could happily be their dad.
And this season began so brightly. 4 wins in 5 games. You're in 4th place. Best ever start to a Premier League campaign. Unleashed a slew of how far can Brighton go this season. But it ran aground in February. 6 straight losses. But your team really are, to me, they're like a football team of Ewoks. Lovable footballers.
We've got a eccentric bunch of overachievers who punch above their weight. Thrift store players who've come good rather than the superstars. All we need is one superstar striker, and I tell you, we'll be like top 5.
You don't have a superstar striker, but you do have Neil Maupay, who is a fascinating human being to watch on a team that stars for goals. He loves, almost lives to waste the obvious chances, and only seems to really want to thrash home late bangers.
Maupay! Absolutely astonishing! It's happened again!
His one gag is to score really late and then absolutely wind up the other players and the other fans to the point that they want to kill him. And some of us do as well. There's a thing called housery, which he is the key. He is the genius of that. I mean, for that alone, we'd have him on the team. But like I said, we do also need someone who can find the back of the net.
Yeah, Neil Maupay is FIFA rating as a player 23, but for Housery, I think he's 97 rated.
Yeah, right.
Regardless of what happens in Brighton's last couple of games, Norm, this is a season that will be fondly remembered. Your club have achieved their best points tally in the Premier League. Is that victory after all you've been through in and of itself, or does it leave you dreaming of more?
You know what? At the moment, what we settle for is having spent the whole season not being in the relegation zone. We've spent the previous 4 seasons, always that little flutter in your heart of like, oh. But we've been like upper mid-table the whole season.
And it's 3. Yves Bissouma adding the gloss finish to what has been a dominant Brighton performance.
And it's just been a joy. It's so lovely, that feeling of not being continually scared that you're going to get relegated. And so we will settle for that. As underachievers, perennial underachievers, to achieve anything is something we'll just take home with a lovely, cosy, warm feeling.
Your club story's amazing, though. What's the moral of it? What is the purpose of Brighton?
We're fiercely independent, and even if you're rubbish, at least you're your rubbish. We may not be much, but we belong to our city, and I will love the spirit of this team until the day we decide to sell to some foreign investor. And that will be the day that the soul of the club will depart.
That person who's probably going to buy the club and destroy its soul is probably watching this interview on American television as we speak. They're probably turning to their partner, be like, honey, I think I can destroy a club soul.
Hey, Mrs. Glazer, I think we got the next one. If you are watching right now, Mr. Potential Investor, our soul is not to be bought, and if you do buy us, then have mercy on your soul.
God bless you. Norman Cook, to you, to your family, to your beautiful town and your beautiful team. Courage.
If you're ever in Brighton, come and see us.
Come on, you seagulls.